everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Level Up Watches, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is a spin-off series of the Level Up and Friends podcast where those of us from the comic books and video game store Level Up Entertainment in Mays Landing and soon-to-be Summers Point, New Jersey, gather with some friends and discuss the latest in pop culture entertainment. And of course, this series, we are covering The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And this is episode 2, and I am joined by... Well, first of all, the guy you saw here last week, who I would say he's the man who demands royalties every time the Star Spangled Man is played. Marvelous, Mike Pinto.
A star-spangled man with a plan.
And everybody just turned it off.
Now you'll get copyright infringement on the episode.
Yeah,
Hello,
we can't now.
South Jersey. What's
DMCA strikes. Come on, what are you doing to me? And we're also joined this week by the fantastic Kendall. Welcome.
Hello there.
Welcome,
Thanks for
sir.
having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And before we get started, I wanted to give a spoiler warning because we didn't do that last week. But this is a spoiler-intensive podcast. We're going to cover episode 2.
Is that not assumed?
Well, some people just do like a general overview. They don't really get into like the nitty-gritty of it. And also, like, I want to warn the people that we may spoil other movies, you know, if they maybe skipped around. So just right off the bat, spoiler podcast. Kendall, we did not get a chance to talk to you last week, so I just wanted to see what are your overall thoughts and impressions on Falcon and the Winter Soldier so far.
My overall thoughts. I'm stoked to see where it goes. I definitely like it. Coming out of WandaVision, I was like a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
This hasn't like grabbed me quite as tightly, but I'm definitely stoked to see where things go.
It's more of like a traditional, like straight up Marvel action flick right now. Like it feels like a movie in 6 parts, right? Instead of like the otherworldly cosmic WandaVision.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, it's still, I mean, this one, and like, it's weird to say that these are smaller stories than the movies, because like, WandaVision was like reality bending, wild insanity. This is dealing with, well, we'll get into what this is dealing with, but so there definitely are stakes to these stories, but it's still very very character driven, character focused, which I really like. That's what I'm here for.
Mike, how are you doing this week? What did episode 2 grab you in, or?
Well, I'll tell you why it greatly disappointed me at the beginning, where I almost turned it off. But I would like, to Kendall's point, I think WandaVision, at least for the first few, was very episodic in terms of that each, there was a beginning, middle, and an end to each of the earlier episodes before we realized what was going on in this bubble. Here, it's set up, in the first episode that it's going to be, a saga, a serial, where we have this continuing storyline, which we did in WandaVision, but we didn't know it yet. Before we get to that, though, I do have the Marvel Lego of the week to unveil. This was a birthday gift from your host right over there, and this is continuing with our Iron Man. The theme last week we had, which actually I got you for your birthday, we had the Iron Man, I don't know what you call this, what the specific name is, the helmet, the bust. Yeah. And this is actually all just individual tiny Legos creating one of three Iron Man. And this is the one that I chose to do. So that's your Lego.
It has like a sheen to it. Did you frame it or?
No, I think that's just the light.
Oh, okay.
The reflection that you're getting.
Okay.
It's the pieces.
All right. Well, so does that mean we're getting a Lego Marvel of the Week every week?
Yeah, up until next week. And then after that, I run out.
Well, you know, we'll
We could
send
go
you
to
some
the
of the
Disney. Well, if we stick with the Disney family, we'll have enough to get us through the series.
when we monetize this, you know, since we can with all our DMCA strikes, we'll send you the check to go cover your Marvel Lego expenses.
Sounds good. But I'll tell you, going back to the beginning of the episode, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Well, first off, it loads on Disney Plus. And what's the name of this week's episode?
The Star Spangled Man.
Right away, I get excited. We're going to have a reprise of that wonderful Alan Menken theme song that hooked me in Captain America over a year ago, quarantine week 2. And then, what is my favorite part of any Marvel cinematic experience?
The opening cinematic,
the Marvel
opening
fanfare.
Yeah.
The Marvel fanfare, which those of you who may have watched Front Row Conversations know that we have taken for the Minty Awards. But that was missing during this week. It starts and the logo and you know the video starts and it all you have this like hip hop beat starting. And I said to Kristen, I said, oh no, I'll leave the podcast like Jack Parr left the Tonight Show mid-show if this is what's happening right now to this series. But what happened? It was a hip hop version of the Star Spangled Man that was being
marching
played.
Band reprise. Yes.
Yes.
I want these the soundtracks of these shows on CD, like or you know MP3 or whatever.
CD. What is a CD?
Yeah, I know. But like between WandaVision and now this, like there are some really good songs. The score is really, really good.
Yes, we didn't talk about it, but WandaVision, they recreated, you know, the openings and really the themes, you know, not directly, but really paid homage to all the themes that they were copying in their show. So that's why I got very upset at the beginning of this week's episode and almost, you know, turned it off. But back to the script.
All right, let's go through it. Let's run through the episode. So it starts off, you know, the cliffhanger. It starts off with a previously on to kind of catch you up. But the cliffhanger from last week was introducing the new Captain America. And the big question was, who is this new Captain America? And the show wastes no time in introducing us to John Walker. He's getting ready in the locker room of his former high school. And, you know, he's going to do some sort of presentation. And he talks to his wife, who gives him some encouragement. And, you know, we see.
Do we know that was his wife?
I think they explained it as a wife or girlfriend, significant other, or something.
Okay,
something
all right. I know I missed a few things last week. I hope I didn't miss like that point.
Well, in episode or comic issue number 563. No, but she's trying to give him some encouragement, and you know, he's just saying like there's a lot of expectations on him, and he doesn't want to fail the group and everyone, and it's like almost a mirror image of sort of what Sam was going through. But, you know, in this case now John Walker has the job, and you know, they're talking about the heaviness of wearing that suit and what that means. And yeah, I thought this was an interesting way to introduce John Walker, because I expected a very arrogant, boisterous, you know, I've got this, I'm ready to go, I want to go, you know, kill some people. And, you know, there is some of that. It seems like his friend comes in and he's like, oh, you can't just punch your way out of everything. But there also seems to be some humanity here. What do you guys think of meeting John Walker for the first time?
Yeah, it definitely, that opening scene grounded the character. I thought for sure we were gonna hit the ground like hating this dude, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, he's an actual person. He, you know, he's as nervous as anyone would be taking up this this role. I thought it was a good way to go, that I wasn't, because you know, I expected him to be more of an antagonist right off the bat.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mike, how do you feel? Is that your Captain America?
No, sir. Still don't like him, but I think they did, like Kendall said, they humanized him early on, so that you may have some conflict of how you feel about him. I think him and Steve and, you know, and Sam all are approached this role of Captain America differently and what it means to them. But I think it was a good choice to go that route. Now, if I can give what that was in Georgia, I believe, the high school. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, I
This
think
is my little nitpick of the show, because when they're in the football field getting ready for Good Morning America, it's dark out. It's nighttime. And then yet the next scene in New York, it's morning and they're watching the show. Same time zone, it's airing live, and yet a little, discontinuity there, which is very unlike Marvel. So that was the second strike that the episode got within the first 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
Did not even catch that.
No. I saw that it was dark and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Good Morning America films at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So that makes sense. But
7 a.m., 7 to 9.
Oh, okay.
Local time.
I don't see that time in the morning very often. So. The Good Morning America interview does show us a little bit more about John Walker's history. He's the only person to ever win 3 medals of honor, which I don't know if that's possible, but he's apparently has a very impressive military record. His body has been studied by MIT. And they show him a clip of him already practicing with the shield and throwing it at targets, which I was trying to think, like, when does this take place? How long has he had the shield? But apparently he's already practicing with it. And that stadium is packed full of people with John Walker shirts, John Walker action figures. He's signing autographs. And it just made me think that where we, the viewers, are very hesitant to accept him as the new Captain America, and I think that's because we've spent so much time with the old one and these other heroes, it seems like the general public seems like they're okay with this, the general Marvel public, or at least maybe his hometown.
Now, here's actually a question for the Marvel fandom, because at the end of Endgame, Steve goes back, to place all the Infinity Stones back in their place. When did, in the timeline we're in now, when was Captain America last young Captain America? Or when he went back to stay in 1940 and then he showed up old again at the end of Endgame, did that change how America was used to seeing him?
So my understanding, and I think there was a lot of back and forth about this, is that when Captain America, the last time the public had seen him was the final battle with Thanos. Like after that was over, that was sort of the last time. And it's funny because like there must have been a drone or something, because a lot of people have details about that final battle that that shouldn't. Like they were talking about it in WandaVision, like they watched it on the news. But when he went back to return the stones and lived out the rest of his life, it was in an alternate timeline. And so it wasn't this current timeline. And when he returned older, he had a way to kind of jump back to talk to Sam. And then we don't know what happened after that. So,
as you know, time travel was the most difficult piece of this show. So if you could, that's fine. That's good.
That's
enough.
my understanding. Kendall, feel free to jump in if it's different, but they've gone back and forth about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the official stance is, but I just assumed he was, the public doesn't know he went back in time, but I assume he's around in the current timeline. I don't really know, though. I have no idea.
Yeah, they're deliberately kind of being very vague about that, and it's hard to tell where he is, but in any event, the public seems to have moved on. It's like James Bond. We got a new one, so all right, that's how we're gonna go forward. And I also wanted to note that Marvel this week, outside of the show, has been advertising John Walker Captain America t-shirts, Funko Pops, keychains, everything. So they're going full on, like, here's the new Captain America, it's John Walker, get your t-shirt.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I said. I sent it over to Mike and I was like, this is very interesting because, if something happens with this guy, there's going to be a lot of people that bought the action figure that he was signing in the show. They're selling that Marvel Legends action figure in like the same packaging. there's going to be people that are very upset if things turn south for John Walker.
Interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like, when they have the T-shirts of both teams in the Super Bowl, one goes to Modell's and then the loser goes, to some third world country. This is, they've created John Walker, Captain America, and I'm sure there's Sam Captain America somewhere that they're holding off, that's the way it goes.
Well, it could just end up being like people walking around wearing Yankees gear, it's just people just gonna assume things when they see somebody wearing John Walker Captain America gear. So after we meet John Walker, I want to get back to, we catch up with Sam. He's prepping for the mission to go get the Flag Smashers, and we find Bucky. Bucky finds him, and just right off the bat, no hello, no how you doing. He's just like, you shouldn't have given up the shield. And Sam's kind of like, good to see you too, and Bucky's really getting on his case about giving up the shield and seeing what happened. And Sam says, like, it broke my heart to see that they replaced him that quickly, but I've got other things going on right now that are more important. And to Bucky, there is nothing more important. And we see this animosity from Bucky, it runs through the rest of this episode, and it's all around the fact that he feels like Steve chose Sam and Sam shouldn't have given it up. Were you guys surprised to see sort of the back and forth, the bad blood, the bitterness between these two early on?
Not particularly. I mean, I feel like they, when they first met, there was always kind of like a bit of it definitely was like more like a friendly, like rivalry before. Yeah. But yeah, they've always had like, they didn't really click, perfectly.
The car scene in Civil War where he's like, can you put your seat up? And he's like, no. Can you please put your seat up? And they're fighting each other. That was like one of the basis of this entire show. So like that little interaction was what, was the push to have these guys, interact again with each other. I've seen it referred to online as Captain America's ex-girlfriends having to get together and, and spend time with each other. And if you look at it through that lens, it changes the entire picture of the show. But yeah, it's definitely the vacuum of not having Steve Rogers around is weighing on these guys, and they're both handling that in a different way.
And I guess, you look at from Bucky's point of view, and I don't know whether he thinks that, or to what degree he thinks that he should have gotten the shield and he should have carried it on. But Bucky was around when Captain America became Captain America. He knows what that, person meant to the country, in the 40s. So I think part of it is that maybe he thinks Sam doesn't realize what that character means to the country outside of this superhero legend. So that take, and also the, if that was me, I would have done it in a heartbeat. I don't know what's wrong with you. I will say though, I thought I mentioned last week, I thought this would be more like a buddy movie. And I think there were a lot of humorous moments, a lot of good interaction between the two of them. That was actually Kristen's note for you, that you enjoyed the humor between the two characters this week as the episode went on.
Well, I really like the, we're going to go fight. It's one of the big three. And he's like, what's the big three? And he's like, it's either aliens, androids, or wizards. That's what we always end up fighting. It's got to be one of the three. And Bucky was completely like thrown off by that. And I also like the reference that, Doctor Strange is a sorcerer. Well, that's just a wizard. Well, no, it's a wizard without a hat is a sorcerer. So clearly they don't play D&D because those are completely different classes. You can't be a wizard and a sorcerer. I guess you could multi-class, but the hat has nothing to do with it. So Bucky and Sam flying off to Munich. We get more back and forth with them about, having a plan, and Steve always had a plan. Well, you don't have a plan, and all this. So they're clearly, they're still going back and forth, and this keeps going on through the whole episode. But I did want to note here that Bucky just jumps out of the plane without a parachute. And he's like, all right, I can do this. He just uses his arm and just kind of cushions his fall. I don't know, but apparently Bucky is still enhanced in terms of being able to jump from high distances and whatever Winter Soldier conditioning he had. So the other thing that was funny here in this scene, this is when they're kind of spying on and laying out the land when they catch up with the members of the Flag Smashers that they're catching up with. They reference Bucky's stay in Wakanda, and Bucky tries to like stealthily sneak forward, and Sam calls him the White Panther, and he says, nope, I was the White Wolf, and bringing back his Wakandan name, and Sam had no idea what that meant. We get to our first big action sequence in the episode where they catch up to they chase these two 18-wheeler trucks, trying to chase down the Flag Smashers. There seems to be about 6 or 7 members according to Red Wing scans, and there's a hostage in the truck according to Bucky. So Bucky jumps on the truck to go rescue the hostage. He opens up the back of the truck, and the truck is full of vaccines and medicine, which I thought, wow, that's very topical. A truck full of vaccines going out.
That was the AstraZeneca ones that have not made it to the United States.
But there's a little girl in the back of the truck, and she comes out, and Bucky thinks that he's rescuing her, but turns out she is actually the leader of the Flag Smashers, and her name is Carly Morgenthau, and or Morgenthau, maybe, I don't know. But that is a play off of the comic book leader of the comic book character known as Flag Smasher, who is Carl Morgenthau. So a little bit of comics.
Did not look it up in the encyclopedia. I was tempted. It's in there. Did not look it up.
A little bit of history. They changed the character slightly, but to Bucky and maybe the viewer's surprise, this little girl was able to kick him out the back of the door and into the next truck. So clearly,
I wouldn't. She wasn't like 8 years old. You keep saying this little girl.
Well, I mean, they thought the leader was that like big buff guy from episode 1, and was this. I mean, Sam tells Bucky, "You're getting your butt kicked by a little girl." She's just like a. I don't know how old she is. Maybe a teenager. What do you think? I don't know.
I don't want to get letters. That's right.
Clearly, though, she has. It was a trap. They sprung the trap, and Sam and Bucky. It's this fight sequence, which is again just a reminder of the different abilities of the two. You get to see Bucky in action now. He's using his vibranium arm to hold on to the side of the truck and do all this stuff. But each of the members of the Flag Smashers are enhanced in some way. So it seems like something's going on here.
I also thought that action sequence, also reminiscent of the Captain America fight scene on the train. Yeah,
very, very similar. And you hold your breath as you see Bucky go over the side because you don't want the same thing to happen.
Yes.
During this fight, Red Wing, rest in peace, gets smashed up, and Bucky says, "Man, I really wanted to do that," but I noted that because that may come into play later as the new Captain America shows up out of a helicopter, and along with his partner, who is his last name's Hoskins. I think his first name's Lamar, maybe.
I think so.
Lamar Hoskins. Battlestar is his code name, and so so we get the sequence of the 4 of them trying to fight together, and it doesn't go well. I mean, there's no coordination. At one point, New Cap throws his shield and Bucky catches it, which is very reminiscent of the Winter Soldier scene when he does that. But you can see he's visibly annoyed to see another person wielding Sam's shield. And but I will say this, John Walker, pretty smooth move. There was a point where like Hoskins falls off the truck and he like frisbees the shield to break his fall, and thought that was pretty good use of the shield there. But what did you guys think seeing these guys in action?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Are they enhanced?
Don't know. It doesn't really say. The only thing we've found out is that they're for military people or for soldiers, they are the top of the top, the best of the best. But we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense that the good guys got their butts kicked for sure. But yeah, it was a fun sequence, and it was a good reminder of like Bucky, like right at the beginning, he's just like booking it to catch
Mm-hmm.
up to those trucks. Like it's like, oh yeah, like this dude can hang.
Yeah, he's I forgot that Bucky was just more than a vibranium arm, and assassin training. Like I thought, that was his thing, but like I forgot he also had, enhanced speed and senses and sort of like what Steve had. And also, now we see that the members of the Flag Smashers, it's actually kind of a small group. It doesn't seem like it's a huge, from the first episode, it looked like it might have been 20, 30 people, and it may only be these 8 individuals here working together. During the sort of licking the wounds scene, I'll call it. It's Bucky and Sam get a ride back to the airport from John Walker and Hoskins, and they're all sitting in the back of the truck, and they're just like staring at each other. And there's a lot of John Walker trying, I think, to reach out to the two of them and say, we should be working together. We're all on the same side. I know, how you guys must feel. And Bucky and Sam just aren't having it here. Do you guys feel like that was a genuine effort, and do you kind of feel for Walker, or do you think he's just being kind of arrogant in that scene?
I think he says, if I recall correctly, or something to the effect, I can't replace Steve, or I have to be my own Captain America. So I think it was genuine. Do I still think that, there was still arrogance, coming through? Because I think he thought that he could just show up and, toss the shield around and get rid of these Flag Smashers, 1, 2, 3, without realizing, the strength of the enemy and how to go into this scene smartly, which I think Sam and Bucky both thought, Steve would have done that differently. And there might have been a different result had he been the one to show up as Captain America. But I do think it was genuine. I do think that, again, they're humanizing him. It's not all about the arrogance. It's saying, look, I'm not going to be him. I'm going to be my own Captain America. But guess what? I am Captain America now. So you guys, have to accept it. And I'm going to do what I have to do with this title.
I also think it's interesting, right? Like we saw like the stadium full of people and how they reacted to the new Captain America. And I think like the general public of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and, John Walker himself, like to them, Captain America is just like Captain America. There's a person in the mask, but that's who he is. Mm-hmm. To Sam, to Bucky, and to the viewer, Captain America is Steve Rogers. Like we know that character. So, I think like, and I don't know, this is all just, this is, whatever, but I have to wonder, like, is this like what John Adams kind of was like when he's like, all right, I'm the follow-up to George Washington. I'm the president of the United States now. Like, let's go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. Captain America is like a title, to most people.
John Adams. I know him. Sorry, I have to break out into some Hamilton. Here, John Adams.
I was going to 1776.
Yeah. Sit down, John.
But yeah, I think like Mike was saying, he certainly doesn't think he's being arrogant so much as like, what's wrong? Like, I've earned this.
Mm-hmm. I saw it, it's kind of like he's trying to extend the olive branch, especially because these guys were both non-Sokovia Accord signers. So they were like on the run from the law, somewhat semi-fugitive. So I just kind of saw this as like look, I want to work with you guys. I want to be part of the team. You know, I want to bring you guys in on what I want to do. Let's work together. And these guys are just like, how dare you stand where he stood? You know, they're just kind of like, get out of my life. Bucky is the first one off the truck as soon as Hoskins gives him his code name, which there's a little bit of history there in the comic books. The John Walker in the comic books, who was a replacement Captain America for a time, had Hoskins as his Bucky. And I think he even took like the code name. And once the real Bucky heard about that, there was some issues between the two characters. So I think there was a little nod to that here in the show, because once he heard Hoskins' code name, he was like, that's it, I'm out. And he jumps off the truck. And Sam, you know, at least listens for a little bit longer, and then he leaves after, you know, he has his conversation with John.
I do think, though, there's also, you know, there's this continuing theme of discord amongst the heroes, that they never seem to figure out how to work together. And, you know, I think we saw that all the way really through in Infinity War, and only, you know, in Endgame did they actually all sides come together and realize for the greater good. You know, we need to leave egos at the door and truly work together as a team.
That's a good point. Yeah, and there's a lot of egos, and it's also a very comic book thing. It's always, you know, there's some big misunderstanding, so the heroes fight each other, and then they work together. Always. So
yeah, especially with Marvel characters.
Yes.
They can't not fight each other.
Yeah. We get a little bit of background in the next scene on the Flag Smashers. They take refuge with a person who's willing to give them shelter. They totally support the cause. I believe in what you're doing. I think it's great. And you know, they're appreciative because they're on the run now that they know that the Falcon and new Captain America is on their tail. But the leader, Carly, she's getting texts on her phone, and they're very threatening. It's from an unknown number, and it says, you know, you took what was mine. I'm coming after you. And so, you know, she's trying to rally her team, because she feels like, you know, they may not want to continue this path because there's very powerful people now after them. It seems like more so than just the superheroes. It seems like there's somebody else that there's clearly there was something that was taken, and this person wants them back. We find out later on that that person is the Power Broker, is the name of the person. He sends some goons and a squad after them, and they escape in an airplane. That name carries a lot of weight in the comic book world, but I want to throw it to Mike real quick, because this is your first time hearing the Power Broker. Any thoughts or ideas on what that could mean, what that involves?
No, I will pass after my last week's Thunderbolt theories that you have been poo-pooing on me every single day. I'm going to pass to Kendall on this, and only put in to say that I still think that the U.S. government is not the good guys.
Interesting. Kendall, you know, I don't want to throw too much comic book, you know, knowledge in here so we don't spoil future episodes, but the Power Broker is a character from the comic books. It is an antagonist that pops up from time to time and may explain some of the things going on here, you know, when you connect the dots on the Flag Smashers. Were you surprised to hear that name?
So definitely, so my Captain America knowledge, I think I've maybe bought like 2 issues of Captain America in my life.
Yeah.
So when I heard the Power Broker, I was very surprised. But I made a connection to a character that I think we meet in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can keep going. And
all right.
Yeah, hey, I don't know. This is you put the spoiler disclaimer at the beginning, but I'll leave if you guys want to talk about
No. It's just we need to mention that the Power Broker was brought up. It seems like that is the individual that was texting Carly and saying that they took something from him. And that's something that, you know, clearly they're in trouble now on 2 fronts, from the superheroes and from the Power Broker. And we'll see if that comes to play later. the next scene I want to talk about is when Bucky and Sam decide to go see an old contact of Bucky's, and they head to Maryland, and they go to this house that looks like it's seen better days. It's a little run down. They knock on the door, and the door's locked, and there's like a screen door, and a young gentleman answers the door, and he's kind of a little standoffish with them. He wants to know what they want and all that. And, Bucky just kind of says, hey, I'm here to see Isaiah, or is he home? And, tell him I'm the guy that from the Korean bar or something like that. And we find out that they've arrived at the home of Isaiah Bradley. And the young man who answered the door is named Eli Bradley. We'll put a pin in that because we'll come back to that in a second. But this conversation basically reveals that back in the Korean War, the American government and Hydra and others experimented on individuals, and they enhanced them. And there was a super soldier before Steve Rogers, or well, I guess after Steve Rogers, but before he reappeared. Time. So Isaiah shows off, because he's very short with Sam and Bucky. He's not happy to see Bucky at all. He figures, oh, you're here to finish the job, because they actually fought each other during the war when Bucky was still the Winter Soldier. But Bucky's just trying to say, like, look, there are other enhanced people out there. I need information. Is there anything that you could know about, how they got their abilities or what's going on? And Isaiah doesn't want to hear any of it. And the reason being is he was enhanced. He did his job as he's telling them. And the government, in exchange or as reward, put him in jail for 30 years and experimented on him, and weren't, they just didn't leave him alone in peace. And now he's trying to live out the rest of his life, but he lost 30 years of his life being jailed for, he doesn't go into what, but he throws an object across the room and it sticks into the wall. So clearly he has abilities. And, Eli sort of shows them out at that point. He's like, come, that's it, like, goodbye. And this was a big deal for a few reasons. One, for Sam, he feels like Bucky should have told him, or he feels like the world should have known that there was another super soldier. There was a black super soldier, and that was something that was swept under the rug, and the man was put into jail. And Bucky didn't tell him. Apparently, Bucky didn't tell Steve. Nobody really knew about this guy, and he faded into obscurity. And here we spent the first half of this episode watching, like, oh, it's the new Captain America, it's so great, and people throwing parades and whatnot, and this man was thrown into jail. So that scene was pretty powerful. I thought it was interesting to see Marvel go there. The next part of this scene is also a pretty big thing, which we'll get into in a second. But how did you guys feel meeting Isaiah Bradley and his grandson Eli?
Well, first off, you said put a pin in it. Are these comic book characters or no?
Yes.
All
so
right, you don't have to say anything more than that. You don't have to say anything more than that.
Well, I will, because I'm not sure if they're going to come back. I don't know if this was a one-off or not. But Isaiah Bradley was featured in a comic book called America Red, White, and Black. And it was about the Tuskegee experiments, and how there were other super soldiers besides Steve Rogers, the African-American soldiers that fought on behalf of the country. And they decided to, Isaiah saw a situation where he was going to go fight some Nazi soldiers, and it was against orders. And he felt that he had the ability to do something about this, and he wore the Captain America gear, and he decided to do it. And in exchange, just like what happened here in the show, he was put into jail, and and was punished for taking those actions.
And I was going to mention the Tuskegee, that's what I thought too, but I didn't want to be called stupid. But maybe
no.
I do think that there is a parallel. And Sam must be thinking, when we go back to the last episode, where the government, refuses to help him, And we saw where, he got denied the loan from the bank, and society not willing to thank him for all that he's done or take care of him. In my mind, he was looking at Isaiah and seeing there's this pattern that's been going on in America for the last 60, 70 years of the same treatment.
Yep. And Eli Bradley, the grandson, I just wanted to point out really quickly, is another comic book character. He shows up on the Young Avengers. He takes the codename Patriot, and this is now another show that Marvel has introduced characters that are Young Avengers in the comic books. Wanda's children in WandaVision. We're going to get Hawkeye, the female Hawkeye, in that show. So Marvel's Phase 4 seems to be setting up the Young Avengers. So just wanted to point that out.
We also have Cassie and Ant-Man movies. But yeah, I was very stoked to see Isaiah and Elijah. Eli is how I know the Power Broker is a character.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the Young Avengers. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. It's almost like they're sowing the seeds again, like leading up to the first Avengers movie, seeing all these characters pop up and that they may come into play later. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't. See what they do.
Yeah. I want to talk about the next scene because I think this is a pretty important scene for the episode, for the MCU, for Disney, to go here. And it's basically Sam is telling Bucky how frustrated he is that he didn't know about Isaiah. And while they're arguing out in the street, a police car comes in and two white officers step out of the car and they ask, what's going on here? They ask Sam for his ID. They don't ask Bucky for any ID. And Sam is saying, there's no issues here. We're just talking, I'm not going to show you my ID. And Bucky's just kind of like, oh, just show him your ID. Just show him and Sam's like, I don't have ID. The officers are starting to kind of move towards Sam and they ask Bucky, is this man bothering you or is he bothering you? And, it's immediately with everything, especially with, what's been going on in the country, it's just so easy to see that this is a scene that plays out regularly for African-American people, especially, and any people of color, and with interactions with the police. And I was surprised to see Disney going here, to see Marvel going here. And, I feel like this show is teetering on the edge of trying to explain or trying to show some of the issues of race in America. And, it's hard to do a Captain America property without getting political. But I thought that, to see Disney doing this, and especially because I feel like with the politically charged times that we are in, I thought that I was surprised. I'll just say I was surprised to see that they are going there. They're going to try to cover it, to show it. I think that this may cause some vocal opposition to the show and maybe to the MCU. But I think that this is an important story to tell and to show, and an important part of this story, specifically with Sam being asked to take on the mantle of Captain America. So I'll leave it there, and I'll open it up to you guys if you want to talk about this scene, or the scene with Isaiah, and the greater conversations about race that may be happening here.
So I guess my question for you guys, did you guys notice that cop car before it turned its lights on? Like, no. Did you guys just see it? No?
No.
I doesn't stick out to me, so no, I'd have to say no.
Interesting. So I saw, as soon as it pulled up, I saw it. And I was like, I don't know, just being a black man in America, seeing Sam, raising his voice because he's, rightfully upset. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, are they about to go here? And it's interesting. I do wonder if other Black people had the same like feeling, because yeah, like it's in the background, it's out of focus, it's like pulling up at an intersection, and it's just like, oh
Yeah.
It was a pretty powerful scene.
Yeah. And I think that I forgot to say that the only way they got out of it was when, I think Bucky, or maybe the one cop recognized Sam and told the other officer who he was. And then they were like, oh, we're sorry. Our bad. So it was only Sam's celebrity really that got them out of the situation. It may have been an even worse situation.
And still
that
goes. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say that's another theme that seems to be running through the show is, people don't know who Sam is as the Falcon, but like there are T-shirts and lunchboxes with new Captain America John Walker. He's been Captain America for 2 seconds, and he's already got action figures and T-shirts and things. And I think that's a larger conversation too. It's just like Sam needs the costume in order for people to realize who he is, or some visual reminder, as we saw in the bank. Otherwise, he's a nobody.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I didn't even pick up on that theme.
I'm sorry, Mike, I cut you off.
No, I was just going to add that, I think they pushed it as far as they were going to, and then they still diffused it with humor. So that way there wasn't this confrontation. When the cop realized that he was the Falcon, there was that little bit of, back and forth. So, they are going there with the racial themes in this episode, in the series at least. But then each seems to be diffused with those lighter moments before getting too heavy.
Yeah, and I did see some criticism about that too. That this is a serious conversation. It's a weighty subject, and here we're going to undercut it with a joke. And it seems like it's the Marvel way to undercut everything with a joke.
Each time that it's happening.
Yeah.
So I will say, I think that is intentional. Like those microaggressions, like racial microaggressions like that, I feel like are often in the real world, like met with like a joke from the transgressor to diffuse the situation. So part of me wonders if that's not so much them like doing their MCU humor as like kind of just like acknowledging that like that's how those conversations usually end. And honestly, that's probably like why America is still where it is, socially.
Yeah, and my hope is that by showing this to a broader audience, they can see how quickly these kinds of interactions can turn south, and that this can happen. I think there's a lot of times when these stories are in the news, there's always a rush to blame the victim and to blame the African-American man, and what did they do wrong, or they deserved it in some way. And I think to show just how these misunderstandings can go south so quickly, I hope that opens up a few more eyes around the country, more so than the vocal opposition that that there was people tweeting about this and posting about this, and why did Marvel have to bring this in? I just want to watch my superhero show. Meanwhile, missing the impact and the importance of why this is in here, especially coupled with the Isaiah Bradley revelation that we had heroes that were just thrown in jail and were forgotten about and swept under the rug.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, this interaction ends not with Sam getting put into the police car, but with Bucky being put in the police car. How often does that happen? Because he missed his court-appointed therapy session. So there was a warrant out for his arrest, and he was arrested. That takes us to the jail cell with them being locked up, and they get released, and they're trying to figure out who got us out, so to speak. And was it one of the Avengers? Was it one of their friends? No. In walks John Walker, and he's he's doing like finger guns to the cops, and walking in and taking selfies and stuff. And I think this was where the arrogance, I think, started to really shine through, that he could walk into a police station and kind of send out orders to release prisoners or release people from custody. It was like, of course it's that guy. So that takes us to the therapy session between.
Well, if I could just, before we get to that, so again, I think showing more of the celebrity, of Captain America than what Captain America actually stands for. And that seems to be, the theme of how John Walker in this episode, save but for the fight on top of the 18-wheeler, it's been John Walker, Captain America, the celebrity. And that, I think, is more of where he sees the character as opposed to where we see Captain America as.
He does say at one point in the beginning that he wishes there was more to the job than just signing autographs and meeting with senators and taking pictures and stuff. And I think his partner says, that is the job. Like, that's part of being Captain America. So there was like a desire to kind of get out there. But I think, like you said, Mike, now that he's living this lifestyle for maybe it's a few weeks in, maybe it's starting to get to his head. I don't know, because he does seem less sympathetic, more arrogant at this part of the episode. Let's go to therapy. So Bucky and Sam are basically put into advanced couples therapy and forced to stare into each other's eyes. And Bucky just to try to figure out what's the root of this animosity that's going on between them. And, from Sam's perspective, we as the viewer kind of understand that, he's still angry at Bucky for holding the secret for so long. And Bucky, it's a little bit less clear why Bucky's still hung up on, why did Sam hold on to the shield? Eventually we get this moment where Sam is kind of deflecting about why he didn't take up the mantle of Captain America right away and why it was difficult. And I think Sam turns it back on Bucky and he's like, why is this so important to you? And Bucky says, because if Steve was wrong about you being Captain America, then maybe he was wrong about me. And that's where, you see sort of like the emotion coming out. And I think Bucky being afraid that maybe he is just a mindless assassin and Steve was wrong all along. There isn't like a good person in there. How did you guys feel about this therapy scene?
Yeah, I mean, I dug it. I feel like I don't have much to say, but it was good to just finally see what's
bothering these guys.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
Yeah. Mike, any thoughts?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, there was, again, that humor in the beginning, and then, especially when they had the staring contest looking into each other's eyes. But then the explosion that we get right down to what is actually eating at them. Mm-hmm. And I think this is setting the stage, 6 episodes. Okay, we're done with our first act now, where we have the conflict, and now the conflict is going to expand over the next 2 episodes before we get to any type of resolution. So I think this scene set it up perfectly to get everything in place for where we're going.
Yeah, and I think to one of your predictions from last week, here we have that therapist again, same lady, kind of pushing buttons, poking at Bucky. Is she really on the up and up? Is there something else going on? I don't know.
That wasn't my prediction last
well,
week.
no, your prediction last week was that the government is somehow involved. And
no,
this
I do think
she works
yes,
for the
and how
she works for the
quickly-
government.
Yes, and Walker gets her there. So was he behind her getting there so quickly, and does he have a stake in keeping them at odds with each other?
Very interesting. Something to watch. At the end of this therapy session, they're released, and this was something I just wrote down as sort of like privilege at work here. Like they walk out, and all of a sudden, like the lights start flashing outside from one of the officers' cars, squad cars, and they look up, and it's John Walker and his buddy playing with the lights with the car. And it was like, well, we just had like 10 minutes ago Sam getting almost arrested or something worse for having an argument, raising his voice in the street, and here John Walker can play with the open cop cars at will. And this was sort of the escalation of all of the distrust and the anger and the previous conversations that they've had. This one turned south much more quickly and ended with John Walker sort of warning Sam and Bucky, like, look, if you're not going to work with me, then stay the hell out of my way. And at that point it was like, oof, like, don't know if you're burning up the goodwill that you built up here over this 40-minute period.
And what is his way? What is his end game that he thinks, that Bucky and Sam are trying to get in the way of?
Don't know. And then the episode ends with Bucky suggesting, one more lead, since they're sort of out of leads now. But Bucky has like one more contact person we can try, because Isaiah made an offhand reference to Hydra experimenting on him. So there is one man that Bucky knows that knows all of Hydra's secrets, and that is Helmut Zemo, who is the antagonist from Civil War. And the show, jumps to him sitting in his Berlin jail cell, and you see him sort of sitting there waiting, and that is the end of the episode. So we're gonna get some Zemo coming up, which is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Overall, thoughts, impressions, episode 2, we're a third of the way in.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Third of the way, huh? Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like Mike was saying, we're in the first act, or we've just wrapped it up. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. I feel like they're not bringing Zemo in for nothing,
Right.
I think we've done a lot of setting up over the last 2 weeks, and now I think it's time to have some action, make some decisions, and see what happens from there. And not knowing all the little comic book minutia that you guys mentioned, I'm even more excited now to see some of the twists and turns that lie in the weeks ahead.
All right. So we're almost at the finish line, but as we always end these episodes, I want to hear some predictions. We'll start with you, Mike, because you are our MCU guy. So you're coming at this from the perspective of someone who's watched the movies and WandaVision. What do you think? What's in store for us from this point?
I will predict that on Thursday, the Yankees win their home opener versus Toronto on their way to their next World Series championship. And I will probably never be invited to another South Jersey podcast ever again, but it was fun while it lasted.
This means that Captain America, since he's no longer a guy from Brooklyn, he's a guy from Georgia. He's probably a Braves fan. He's not actually a Yankee fan anymore.
You would have been a Dodgers fan then, Captain America.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, that's true.
No, I still think I want to know more about the government. I'm thinking that this is a setup by the government against. I may be totally off base, like I have been known to be, but I think they're setting them up.
Do you think it's the actual government, or is it like Hydra has infiltrated them again? Or
no,
like
I think Hydra is back in with the. I think they've re-infiltrated the government, And especially after last week, what we said, enemies are allies, or whatever that quote was from the first episode. They wouldn't say that unless maybe it was just a one-off, but I think that would come again as we learn, the greater geopolitical picture post Endgame. So that is my prediction. I hope we see or learn a little bit more about the Power Broker and the Flag Smashers in this episode. I want more action. I'll be a little upset if this is still setting up, because then that only leaves 3 episodes. So
that is one of my criticisms about WandaVision. I felt like they wound it all up and then they only had 1 episode to really finish everything off. Kendall, any predictions you want to share with us?
I think I definitely think the main bad guy is yet to be revealed. These Flag Smashers, they think they're someone else's pawns, but we'll see.
Interesting. All right. Well, anything else that you guys want to plug before we head off? Mike, I'll start with you. You had usually stuff. What's going on in Staten Island?
What's going on in Staten Island? Great weather today. There was not a cloud in the sky. No, we're just enjoying. Schools are on spring break up here for the Easter Passover holidays. So it's a quiet week. We have a new front row conversations on the Minty Awards page with our buddy Phil Colgan, who Harry may remember from way back when, the old Marvelous Mike and Friends, talking about his time in Hamilton. So head over and check out that video if you have some time. Otherwise than that, it's just another good week. So I thank you, gents, for having me on. Happy Easter, happy Passover, and we'll see you next week.
Kendall, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Oh, let's see. Philadelphia, plenty of trash on the ground, but
that's the line of the podcast right there. I want that to be the tagline of the podcast.
John Walker will be right over there to clean that right up.
I wish he would. Nothing too crazy. Wife and I are working on a 4-page story for a comics anthology put out by the Indie Comics Union.
Very cool.
Still a ways off until that's released, but definitely look for it.
Yeah, keep us posted. And for me, I have been hard at work getting Level Up Entertainment 2 ready for business over in Summers Point. We are really, really excited. We were, building shelves and putting things together. So it's coming along. We're getting ready for opening soon. But it's going to be a really cool location, a lot more space, a lot of, all the comics, video games, all the stuff that you guys love.
Inventory for you. I have the inventory. Take it off my hands.
We'll be in touch. So you can find all that. In the meantime, please come visit the Hamilton Mall location in Mays Landing and check out shoplevelup.com for all of your online needs. And that'll do it for Level Up Watches episode 2. I hope to have you guys back soon. Kendall, we'll catch up with you in 2 weeks. And Mike, I hope we'll see you next week.
And we'll see what happens.
And for everybody here at Level Up Watches, I have been Harry, and we'll catch you next week. To be continued.
Hey.